Welcome back everyone to the Hearthstone Grand Prix here at Dreamhack. I'm Raven, and joining me for this next series is going to be Frodan and Lothar. This is the third quarterfinal of the day, and it is going to be Loyan versus TheFallen. We just saw Loyan's teammate, who's Super JJ, just lose 3-0 to Weggers.
Ah, shocking! Hey, man.
We have not seen Zoo sweep.
Zoo do well today at all. Kappa.
Yeah, but this is going to be a bit of a crazy one because Loyan's bringing a pretty standard lineup that we've seen, sort of like the first level strategy, and TheFallen's bringing a few crazy decks himself that we saw yesterday. But we can check out the bracket and see where we're up to so far now, and we see now that Unid actually beat Ness and went through, and then Weggers just recently, as we discussed, with the 3-0 with Zoo over JJ.
I do want to give a shout out again to Super JJ. Very good job being able to get once again to the top 8. A little bit sad that JJ keeps doing really well in Swiss at all the events he goes to, and it seems that he just keeps busting out at top 8, but it's still quite the notable achievement. And I want to give him a shout out too, because I think his consistency in 2016, even towards the end of 2015, so for a year now, his consistency is something to behold.
Yeah, it's probably like in general in Swiss, like unbeaten. I don't know for sure, but I would have a pretty strong bet on that one that he's just the most consistent Swiss player this year at least. And even it gets like really brutal once Swiss is finished. Actually goes to the top 16, which is then just single elimination. You lose one match and you're out. So it gets very difficult.
For me personally, the achievement to get in the top 16 or just top 8 or whatever the cut is way more worth when you do it like multiple times than just winning one tournament.
Yeah.
I would rather be in top 8 or top 16
every single time,
than just win one tournament, that's it, and then disappear from the scene basically.
Yeah, I would love if we were able to historically just dive through the Grand Prix statistics, because we've had
I talked about that yesterday.
We've had about 6 or maybe 5 or 6 by now of just Swiss rounds, and we can really compile a lot of data. JJ went to not just summer and winter this year, but also Valencia and Austin, and he did well in all of those. In fact, I think he advanced in 3 out of 4 of them to the top 16 to the top 8, narrowly missing out on one of them.
And as well, you go a bit further out in some other tournaments that run Swiss, the big LAN events like in the UK. He gets through Swiss in those as well, so it's just extremely consistent performance. But it's his teammate that's up next, so the last man standing for complexity, and it is Loyan versus TheFallen. And TheFallen's lineup is bringing Shaman.
Yeah.
But it's not mid-range, it's there.
I hope it's not banned. It's not banned. It's not banned.
Oh,
we will
okay.
most likely
Look at you.
see the Shaman. Although, if I remember correctly, Fallen's Warrior had been kind of different as well. But we didn't see it before, I think. At least not on stream. We know that the Warlock is a Reno Jackson Warlock. So it has...
I think it's Reno Cthulhu Warlock.
Yes.
Which is... crazy as well, and then Tempo Mage.
Okay.
So people look at this lineup, they think, you know what? I feel like I've seen this before, but it's completely different. It's a control shaman, which I'm very fond of. The Reno Jackson Warlock and Tempo Mage, Warrior won't be seen this series, but if you look at his opponent's lineup as well, you can see that Loyan tends to play pretty basic strategies, I think, across the board. The one thing that is noteworthy is that he is also able to play Shaman this series. We see that TheFallen chose not to ban it.
Yeah, and what's interesting there is like TheFallen's not banned it because he has a lineup that he thinks can actually perform very well.
Oh, yeah.
But the cool thing about this matchup specifically is that Loyan is a Shaman specialist. So, he's very much known for his Shaman play on ladder, getting extremely high finishes, building a lot of the Shaman decks as we progress through the meta, and he actually gets to play it this time, which I think might be the first time in this whole tournament it's not been banned for him.
Yeah, it's a little ironic to use the term shaman specialist these days.
He was before it was like.
But
super
Loyan
popular.
was known for playing shaman in the time when shaman wasn't as well respected compared to before. Like before, it was like aggro shaman a lot, and people weren't really playing mid-range shaman. And Loyan was the one climbing to #1 with it, and really trying to help people pilot. He was streaming it a lot, and that's how he actually was his claim to fame prior to qualifying for one of the HCT Summer Championship, or I think it was a Spring Championship, where he lost to George C.
we're just edging our bets here.
I think it's Spring. He faced against George C. because in the summer George C. came back.
Yeah, he returned
there.
Yeah, but no. How do you actually think this clash of lineups is going to go? We saw TheFallen take obviously his victory from the top 16 to get to the top 8 yesterday. Do you think it's going to be enough to take down yet again just a more of a standard lineup? Because you've got to think Fallen had to go through a lot of these sort of standard lineups in the Swish portion of the bracket as well.
Oh yeah.
It's really hard to predict what this Shaman will do because we didn't see it before, right? And I'm hoping he will open with it. So we'll see that right off the bat. We'll see how this Shaman is being built. We know that he's not running Earth Elemental, so it's not like a typical control grindy
like ancestral spirits. Yeah,
exactly. So it's kind of a different approach. I'm really interested to see that. So I'm really hoping to see it at the first time.
It's going to be great, and I think it'll be crazy if we see something along the lines that Frodan will be fond of, is like this control style Shaman like sweep. Even
I was actually playing Control Shaman against you. We played a best of 5.
I don't want to talk about this. you were only mentioning this because you won.
We played a best of 5, and I cleaned up some house. With Control Shaman, it was great.
Yeah, Control Reno. But we are going to get into the game now, and it looks like it's going to be the Tempo Mage versus the Zoo. TheFallen versus Loyan. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Raven, but does this look like a Tempo Mage? There's an Emperor, a Ragnaros, and a Harrison Jones.
Yeah, it definitely... I mean, Tempo Mage is such a relative term these days, Lothar. People use the term Tempo Mage very liberally along the words cringe and... dab and all these other terminologies.
Wow.
Lit.
My God, this is like so American.
The term tempo has been bastardized in large part by the Hearthstone community, just thinking that they understand what the word means. In reality, it just doesn't mean anything.
But facing against a Zoo, historically speaking, a typical Tempo Mage is actually capable of beating Zoo because he has access to so many spells that can be advantageous in this specific matchup. So let's say Arc and Missiles, a Frostbolt on top of a Flame Waker is actually insane. But
wow,
that is a very courageous or ambitious play for turn 1 when you can just directly lose your Mana Vim to just an Abusive Surgeon. But what does this do is the fact that you have an Arcan Missiles, which can be used against an overextension like that, right?
I suppose so. I mean, Fallen knows his opponent's off coin, so the only way he can really get punished is Abusive Sergeant. It wouldn't be a combination of other things. So for him, he says, assuming he doesn't have Abusive Sergeant, because keeping it would be unlikely in that scenario, that he'd be able to play the Cold Sorcerer and run away with the board with Mana Worm getting ahead of their opponents. So I don't blame him for the logic. It just ended up lining up really poorly for him. Oh, wow.
Oh my. That was his plan, man. Arcan Missiles with spell damage to hit only minions and almost clean up the entire board is actually insane.
Yeah, all according to the Keikaku. Well, Fallen Loyan is just going to recover pretty easily here. Just let that Cold Sorcerer live. It feels like can't do too much on 3 mana without the coin. Flame Waker is gone. Oh, sorry, a coin is gone, so Flame Waker wouldn't be that big of a threat right now.
And for Fallen, it's actually really looking pretty great. The next turn, it seems like dropping a 1-drop for the Babimbung and then using his spell power. Sets up a really good turn 4 because you will be cleaning up the mess that is on the board. It will still be one on 1 minion. And you have a great follow-up. If there will be a, let's say, Concealment on next turn, you have the Fireball. Wow. I'll just stop here.
Sorry, man, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's a really powerful card. If not this turn, then just the future turns, because you don't necessarily need to cast it on this board of 1/1s.
I mean, it does 2 damage right now.
Yeah. I mean, Arcane Explosion in general is just fantastic against Zoo, who tends to go really wide these days onto the board with a bunch of these annoying minions. Barnes is also pretty fascinating to me. There's a lot of cards that you can hit well on. Like, it's actually pretty good, but you need a little bit more mana for it to be effective. So, for example, if you hit an Azure Drake, a Mana Worm, those things are just relatively low consequence.
Or the Cold Sorcerer?
Yeah, Cold Sorcerer. Even Flame Waker, you need more mana to do it. But there's also the higher end upside of being able to hit Ragnaros, for example.
Or a Sorcerer's Apprentice, an example, which is also good.
Yeah. And so I personally like not playing Barnes here. I think there's a lot of buffer room that you need once you play Barnes to react of what happens and then capitalize based off of that.
Turn 5 for Loyan. Kind of seems like a Doomguard just on the board. It's kind of excessive. But in the other hand, you have a Librarian and a Soulfire, which do the same basically. So losing 2 cards from the hand, either way, without building much board presence, seems to be worse.
Yeah, I don't really think Loyan had much of a choice to answer that. The Soulfire losing the Doomguard would be too devastating, and then if you play Soulfire, you're almost implying that you're developing Darkchild Librarian and the Direwolf Alpha, which kind of means that you're going to be losing the Doomguard guaranteed.
Hitting an Arthur Drake or a Sorcerer would be a lot, because an Arcane Blast would have been killed the Doomguard outright. But in this case, I actually like not using the Arcane Blast, because that means that Doomguard needs to attack into it.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a very good point. You're sort of putting a big target mark. That Flamewaker 1/1 has a taunt effect essentially.
Yeah, it's an optional taunt, so I can see that.
Yeah.
That next turn will be basically just Flamewaker and maybe a Frostbolt being drawn or a whatever else spells for 1 or 2 mana, right? So.
Yeah, I guess so. But that means that if you need to play, if you need other plays, you won't be playing your Emperor Thorsan instead. So if you were planning on playing Emperor that turn, which now in hindsight the board expanded a lot more, you probably ended me to addressing the board here.
Nah, I think it's fine because look. The Doomguard had to kill the Flamewaker, so now it's in range of the bonds. That means you can just trade and slam Emperor anyway. Okay. So, to be honest, I would like to see the Emperor this turn. Because that means you can either curve out on the Ragnaros on turn 7, or play Flamewaker for 2 and still squeeze a Fireball with a ping next turn.
Interesting. Looks like he's instead going for some value plays here. I actually like the value trade, and I was thinking about potentially playing Flamewaker this turn, but looks like Fallen just wants to take it a little bit slower, drain the Zoo out of resources, and address one of the more problematic cards, like the Darkshot Councilman, preventing it from ever getting a huge amount of value pressure. Second Doomguard comes to the hand. Loyan's going to dump the other cards first, but pending on the juggle, that could backfire.
Let's see. What will it go?
Oh.
And goes to 3-1.
That was pretty important.
Yeah.
Oh, nice draw there from Fallen. So he should be able to answer most of this board, maybe, if not all of it, depending on how the Flamewaker pings land. Start with the Arcane Blast.
Problem is that his Emperor now will be just a basic 5/5 minion. His next turn, most likely what he will want to do will be just drop the Ragnaros, especially after cleaning this board like that.
Yeah,
I mean, dropping Ragnaros probably wins the game on its own at this point, so it's not a bad idea to do it.
It never felt like the Emperor was the MVP card to win the match, though, because Emperor sort of forgoes tempo temporarily to swing it the following turns, and you didn't really have much going on, so I don't really mind it. And Ragnaros just needs to hit. Actually, hitting anything is kind of okay. I mean, hitting face is not trivial at all. Or the fact that it can put your opponent down to 10, which most likely he'll tap, might end up causing him to get burned to death, and you have Flame Strike to recover if the board gets too big.
It's actually insane that he has a Flame Strike because now it just almost kills him.
Yeah, and Loyan's tap.
50-50.
Loyan's tap put him within just Ragnaros to 1 and 4 him. Assuming he can also just play Flame In, but that puts him within range of a lot more. Fireball all of a sudden becomes lethal too.
Yep. The second Fireball. He already
The second
one.
Fireball, correct.
So the chances of that happening are lower. What you said about the Emperor, wanted to just back it out for a second here. Emperor sacrifices the tempo for 1 turn, but then you get it back, especially when you discount a hand like he had with the Flamewaker, But this...
Oh man, this imp has a huge job to do. Just catch the Fireball!
Here we go. Zoo loses the Tempo Mage. Who would have thought? Not many people bring the Tempo
it's really
Mage.
unlikely. That's a huge win for the Fallen.
Especially with that slower build.
I thought he was wearing a mage tattoo on his arm, which, by the way, Fallen, he definitely lifts. He works out.
Well, he's in a sport club, right? It's Valencia, so...
Yeah, sponsored by the Valencia CF, I believe.
Club football.
Yeah, along with Evangelion, his brother, who won Dreamhack Valencia.
It would be really a really cool story to see Fallen victorious here
Yeah.
at Dreamhack Winter.
2 brothers win 2 out of the 4 Grand Prix this year. Not to mention that Fallon's also top-aided a couple of other big open events as well. Another Dreamhack, perhaps. So I think the fact that he's even back here, even though maybe to the majority of the Western audience, they might not be as familiar with his username, but they certainly have heard of him. And if you search his history, you'll start realizing that this guy has a pretty decent accomplishments. Same thing with Loyan too. Loyan definitely had a breakout performance earlier this year at the Spring Championships for the Hearthstone Championship Tour, where he got to the top 4, I believe. However, was not able to win the whole thing because George C stood in his way, which is always an amusing thing.
Why is it amusing?
Just because, you know, well, the funny thing is when Loyan and George go head-to-head, both those guys take competition very seriously in the sense that after not winning, they both tend to get really upset and competitive. So sitting in a room with them, listening to them talk about plays and stuff is very entertaining because I love when players get fired up because it's just super amusing to me. You know?
Okay, you can see you are having fun from other people's demise.
No, okay. Here's the reason why. Because everyone in reality, Lothar, since you're forcing it out of me, people say they don't care. They say they don't care. Whatever. I don't care. It's just a clown. I don't care. It's just a children's card game. But they really do care. Don't let any player try to convince you otherwise. They all care. Otherwise, they wouldn't be playing this game.
Very true words have never.
Don't let any streamer, any player, any person that competes in tournaments convince you, Twitch chat, or people who watch on VODs on YouTube. Don't let them make you believe that they don't care. They all do. They just are afraid to say they do because they're afraid you'll make fun of them. It's the biggest secret in Hearthstone. That's not such a secret.
When it comes to the competitive players.
Yeah, it does.
Let's go back to the game. Seems like Loyan queued up his Zoff Warrior. Use already a bash on a Cult Sorcerer, which buys him time and gets a little bit of board control back, but now the turn 4 looks awkward. And it doesn't look better in the upcoming turns. I mean, he has the portal for turn 5. If he gets a minion that has a charge, will be like an ideal effect. What do you think? Why didn't he play the Blood to Ichor this turn just to kind of battle the remains of the mana event? Once he want to keep that for an activator for the execute?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting proposition because Ironforge Portal almost seemed like he wanted to be played this turn. So if you do that, then you're not playing Blood to Ichor, and you're almost giving the Mana Worm the opportunity to trade up. There's a lot of minions that could be easily traded with just a hero power with 4 health.
Yep.
In fact, the average health stat line for Ironforge Portal is 4 health. Around there, a little bit above it.
Or is it a 3-3?
Yeah, it's definitely on the lower end, so now he doesn't even have to hero power. He can just easily trade or Frostbolt it if he had something access to it. Maybe even use Arcane Blast, because Frostbolt is super valuable.
Yes, exactly what I wanted to point out, because Frostbolt is not only a damage spell, but the freeze effect against a warrior brings the weapon down for 1 turn, and that's very crucial in some racing situations. I wouldn't be surprised that this turn it will be just this spell. The Arcane Blast, but I was thinking maybe he should just go for the second mana of him as well.
Yeah, I think he's hedging his bets against Brawl. He sees that there's no single target removal convenient, not even a weapon. So I actually think this is pretty smart. The 1 extra Mana Worm would get him an extra couple power on board, but on average he'd be losing 2.5 attack if the Brawl comes out. So I actually think this is a lot smarter to make sure that his opponent can't just Brawl a 3-target board and then potentially just be stuck with that 2-3 Mana Worm.
Yeah, but if they play time, and that can happen with a warrior, then you kind of don't want to overextend in the upcoming turn as well. So what you do, you can just play time with Arcane Intellect and probably hero power, and just smash face for 9 damage, maybe 10 if you play spells.
We're seeing the effect, by the way, of TheFallen, which it says his icon is Warlock, but his mage, his Tempo Mage, has the Emperor Thorsan in the deck. Because he has cards like Archmage Antonidas, that's a card that largely has been cycled out because you feel like you need to be more faster onto the board. However, when you play it slower, you actually do have ammo against decks like Control Warrior. So, the fact that Fallen might have this extra reach, and the fact that he's able to get so much damage in and keep the armor check and count, the armor count in check. I don't know. Words are hard. it might actually be very relevant this game, the Archmage Antonidas. But
I agree.
Yeah, for now, there's 10, maybe 11 damage go into the Face's turn. And the Fallen's also seen like Blood to Ichor pass with the shield block. It's once again looking like that Loyan doesn't have much in hand.
Well, he doesn't either have much in hand, or he's just playing it slow and trying to catch Fallen off guard when he will be just greedy.
Yeah, what are some cards that you can't really play for 6 mana? It's like, well, Brawl is very awkward. You know, straight up stuff like the late game cards of N'Zoth and the Grom. So I think Fallen, you know, he says that he's just making a hard read that Loyan's been holding Brawl and that Loyan's been hoping he's extending onto the board, and he doesn't have single target removal. And he's kind of right. Loyan had Execute, but he refused to use it this long, and he's paying the price for it. Look how much damage that Mana Worm has been able to push this turn.
I think why Loyan is now so low on health is because he refused to play the Blood to Ichor on turn 4, which was kind of awkward. That turn was very important for his tempo, which I probably use in a very bad manner right now, incorrect manner. Yeah. But in general, that was turn 5. It was already like filled with the portal. Now we can see the Brawl is being used. The one that he did draw. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
because I think that's actually something that Fallen probably will pick up, and will use that information. The first card to the left is being there in the hand for the entire game, and is still not being used. So the same goes for the second one from the left, and for the third one.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think Fallen can make another read that's just like, well, I guess he has 2 Brawls maybe. But the fact that he plays a Mana Worm kind of implies that he doesn't really care as much about it.
I don't think he cares. He actually wants to bait it out again. Because then next turn is actually Antonidas into Sorcerer's Apprentice into spells. And that means he will have at least 1 minion that is very capable of comboing with that with the next turn. So either spell damage or a Mana Worm, or just well, if Emperor would have survived, that means that your fireballs are getting cheaper, and that's awesome.
Okay.
So I really like that play when he overextended, when he knows most likely that the first one of the cards from one of the 3 cards in Loyan's hand was a Brawl, a second one.
Yeah, well, we can at least agree that Fallen is, you know, kind of outplaying Loyan this game by a big margin because of how much he's been forcing Loyan's hand. Both Brawls have been used to deal so little damage essentially onto the board.
Oh, another card that is a reach.
He doesn't even need it. He had Emperor Thorsten onto this cheap hand, and now Antonidas and Ragnar should be able to clean up the game. So Final Lance Portal is nice, but Loyan is screwed. He needs to find a way to deal with the board here. Revenge does help to clear the board. He's got Revenge, Execute, and Bash. But in the large scheme of things, can he withstand the pressure?
Interesting decision by Fallen to be more greedy with the Antonidas to get more fireballs. He still anticipates that Loyan will build up the armor back, and the one additional fireball might not be enough. From that turn.
You're right.
Oh, so he's playing a very greedy list.
Yeah, you play 1 Cabal's Tome for the Antonidas, because then a lot of the cards that you pick up, which are really awkward, you know, sometimes you get like an Ice Lance, you can't use it, or you get some other like secrets that might not matter much. As Fallen just ends the game here. It's all kind of like one of the things about the deck that it gives you so much late game and longevity, but the early game is definitely very weak. So it's interesting that the Fallen chooses to ban like Druid, for example. Druid's really known for its slow early game, unless it gets the early game ramp. And so, you know, he's leaving Shaman open, and he's potentially trying to use his Temple Mage to finish out the burn because he has Flame Strikes, and he has late game burn. It's a pretty interesting lineup, you know, the fact that he's able to take these early game wins, and I feel like his Temple Mage is in such a good spot right now because he's able to win that game.
Especially with a lot of those one-offs, right? He has a Flame Strike, he has a Cabal's Tome, and Antonidas. All those cards are very crucial in the late game when your opponent has to make a read and still keep options open against any of those.
Right. The late game power of this quote Tempo Mage is very, very, very high, but as you can see that it does sometimes lack a little bit of consistency. Oh man, he's drawing Mana Worm every single game against Zoo, against the Warrior.
And that is also very, it's like kind of like a Doomsayer in tier 2, right? It pumps your win ratio so high
I feel so silly saying that Fallen's early game is weak in this deck, but then he keeps drawing Mana Worm on turn 1. So I guess it's not. His early game is perfectly fine.
Yep.
And now Loyan stuck in an awkward spot here. Knows that if Tunnel Draw gets put out, he can just get bullied very easily.
And a Fallen as well. Fallen's now is awkward because it dies just to the Spirit Claws. Otherwise, I would like to actually play it unless you anticipate a Totem Golem, which just says the hand says keep the Fallen nose for the Archon Blast so you can kill that Totem Golem.
I think you can anticipate your opponent not having Totem Golem though, because he didn't point it out.
Yeah.
Since he didn't coin out the Totem Golem, because it would bully the Mana Worm, maybe that means you can put the Thalanos onto the board and cycle.
Because that also puts your opponent in a weird position when he uses the Totem Golem, the Hero Power to get the Spell Power. But if he gets the Spell Power, then you need to kill the Mana of him, so your Thalanos is still alive. And at the same time, your hand is kind of weak. You don't have anything for turn 3, so maybe the draw from the Thalanos is actually more important.
I agree. I think his hand is very bad for the next turn, assuming his opponent just Hero Powers, which Shaman tends to do. When they play Spirit Claws turn 1, you can bet that they tend to Hero Power because there's a 25% chance that they just get a 1-mana 3/3 weapon.
Well, let's see if he actually hits it, and he hits the 25%.
Yeah, pretty big. Not the end of the world for Fallen, but definitely a significant boost here for Loyan. He was looking for that.
I think it's actually insanely big because now Fallen still is alive and didn't increase the value of the hand.
I mean, I don't know if it's insanely big, partially because this is sort of okay for Fallen because he just needs to get through the early game. And pretty much, and if he does, he has like such powerful cards like Flame Strike and the fact that Emperor was such a expensive hand could be really, really powerful if he's able to get some really good swing spells with like Ballstone, for example, or Babbling Book. His late game is great, and it's not exactly like Shaman has a very fast hand either. That Pharaoh Spirits is definitely a good pickup though, and a good start for Loyan to start getting onto the board.
Cool Sorcerer. Well, another spell power that can be used in pair with those 3 cheap spells. Basically 2. So you can clean up the Trog and one of the wolves, then the second wolf most likely trade unless your opponent will hit another 25%. Or maybe has a Malison Portal, which fits ideally that turn actually. But I think there are no options. You need to play that because you have to curve out with Acid Drake on the upcoming turn because you need additional cards, and you know that the turn 6 is most likely Emperor, so there are no other options.
Yeah, Loyan's restricted is only 2 mana this turn. Second Spirit Claw's not the most useful right now. If he does manage to get a spell damage totem, though, that I think is pretty significant. Chooses not to. He doesn't even want to risk it.
I like that. I think it's just way more important to get.
Zealot Initiate. Not necessarily the worst type of card if you want to buff a lot of small totems.
Okay.
Useful.
What about the Barnes? Then you can hit one of the 2 Flamewakers. A Rag, of course, which is bad against the 1/1. Here we go.
Barnes is interesting. Yeah, I mean, you could hit it. You haven't drawn any of your Babbling Books though, so it does feel a little risky to have it just a whiff as a 3/4.
There's still 1 Mana of him left, which doesn't really do much if you hit it. So yeah, the Acid Drake is most likely better. It also feels better because you used 2 of the Archon Blast already.
Okay, choosing to trade it in, and as a result, get the Spirit Claws an easy kill. I really like the sequencing on this from Loyan. And all of a sudden, Shaman's starting to make that board presence known and scaring the mage a little bit.
And also it's a very awkward turn for the Emperor to be played because there's a single wolf that trades up.
Yeah, it's awkward. Does it set up something worthwhile, though, on the next turn? You have 2 mana Flamewaker, a 3 mana Barnes, and if it sets up like a Sorcerer's Apprentice for really cheap, or another Flamewaker perhaps, and there's also the possibility of just playing Ragnaros next turn.
That's one of the answers to that.
Yeah. Oh, Fire Elemental off the top. Very powerful tempo being generated here.
And the Fallen is getting really low on health. 18 when you just face 14 on board. next turn, you need to take action immediately. So having the perfect draw would have been a Frostbolt, I think, this turn. But unfortunately, that's not the case.
Ragnaros has a 50% chance of landing onto a significantly powered minion right now, but he is playing with fire because of his opponent. Literally playing with fire. Wow. He circled that fire elemental twice to mark the X on him.
That has
Ragnaros delivers. Yeah, I mean, whatever Fallen's doing, he's got to keep it up. That Ragnaros has been on point this series. Loyan hovering over his Thunderbluff Valiant.
Well, it seems like the best option. It's a no-brainer, I think. Even if you drove the Azure Drake, what are the odds of throwing a second Milestone Portal? Not really that high. And you want to be aggressive still.
Yes, because you have Ragnaros in hand.
Yeah. You don't want to trade with a Rag, which you add additional targets for him, so you don't really care that much.
All right, I think Barnes has to pull the Flame Waker here, or
well,
something. Well,
Babylon can get you a Flame Strike.
Oh, you're right. I guess you can play Book first, since you can play the others as well.
Not really have.
I mean, if you get Sorcerer's Apprentice, you can actually play it. You can play Sorcerer's. You can play the Effigy and the Flame Waker with the missiles, and you get 2 extra pings.
Are there any taunt minions in this deck? I don't think so.
Oh, interesting. I don't think there is.
So, Fallen opts for more odds of killing actually the totem, and I like that. He kills 2 of
Wow,
those.
that was very fortuitous.
So now he has 4 more pings and actually 5.
He should play.
Sorry, well, I'm talking about 3 basically.
Okay, so he took a very conservative line, not really expecting Barnes to pull anything significant. Effigy is not going to do much for the quote bluff, especially because there's a 1/1 on the board. Oh, that's
okay.
awkward.
Well, kind of sucks. It doesn't really destroy the weapon.
Yeah.
And it goes to the face, and that's
basically
almost it. 6 damage from 7 damage from the board, and you can still hit the spell power to get it to 9. Actually,
he's 1 off right now.
That's a problem.
He's got Lightning Storm.
Yeah.
Lightning Storm, and actually, yeah, it is a little awkward. Because you would have to double trade into Rag. I don't like that.
And if you double low on the Bounce and the Flame Waker, that's really awkward then.
And the Lightning Storm's not even guaranteed. You might miss on the kill for the Flame Waker or Barnes.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah, so... Oh, wow.
Never mind.
Never mind.
All
4s across the board.
There's still a chance that Fallen will actually still win. He can draw a Fireball, a Frostbolt. Flame Strike is not it, but the problem is Loyan currently, of course Fallen doesn't know that, but doesn't have an option to deal 1 damage next turn.
I mean,
unless
he has an option for 8 after time.
Well, this turn will be interesting and emotional as well.
No, for his tournament life, he needs Rag to kill himself. Well, kill his other half.
What is it? It's a 4-mana, 5-mana, and
he's gonna go for an opportunity to float the board instead. All right, man.
Okay, what do you think about that?
I don't know. He got punished.
That's a fireball to the face to win 3-0.
I can't accept that.
The Rag was a better option, right?
He had a 50% chance to win.
He played already 2 Spirit Blows.
He needed.
He plays 2 Lightning Bolts, I'm sure.
Yeah, he needs to get Lightning Bolt, and he already used his second Spirit Clause. There's a lot of debate in that. It could also be the fact that Loyan's maybe just conceding. He just feels like I'm not going to really go through. But I expect him to maybe think about that play and see if he had a better option. Regardless, we kind of hyped up the Fallen as the Control Shaman player, as the Reno Lock player. But he didn't even need those decks.
We just saw 3 times of Temple Mage.
His late game Temple Mage deck cleaned the house. And I think that's one of the decks that people were looking at as like, yeah, it can just sweep anything. So it's definitely a powerful deck. I think people are concentrating a little bit too much on his other 2 decks and realizing that Temple Mage is still very strong, especially if they draw his Mana Worm.
Every single time, right?
Yeah, for good stuff. So, Fallen, congratulations, man. You're through to the round of 4. I'm personally excited because I want to see more of your lineup in general. Loyan actually for the final play of that series had a Ragnaros in his hand. When you're at 1 health and a Rag on the board.
And he didn't go for it.
Yeah,
he didn't go
and we
for
were
it.
like, what? The
Yeah,
hell
I
is
thought he was going to
happening?
go for it. Yeah, it would have been crazy.
Yeah, just want to let you know, kid. Just a fun chuckle. So, just how did that series feel for you? It was like really convincing wins from the Tempo Mage.
Yeah, but Tempo Mage is by far my worst deck in the tournament.
Yeah, you said that yesterday.
Yeah. Today is working fine, but I think I'm being very lucky with the stars and everything. Obviously, in the last game, it was like crazy. But yes, it's a fine deck for this meta. But I think I played too greedy because I always play greedy control decks. Okay? So I think Harrison isn't needed. Maybe some AOE, maybe not to Flame Strain, maybe the portal. But well, it's working. So
Yeah, it's working out so far, and I mean, it got you the important win now to the round of 4, and I'm excited to see how far it can go.
Yeah,
I really wanted to see your shaman, and you didn't give
I was just going to say, I'm just disappointed in you in the fact that we didn't get to see your other decks be played, that's all. The 3-on with Tempo Mage is obviously fantastic and getting the work done. Are you confident going into your potential opponent next round?
yeah, but I haven't looked too much at their decks, so I want to study their decks.
Okay, we'll let you go then, so
Okay.
you can get studying it for the next round. So thanks a lot, congratulations on moving on again.
I do want to say that it'd be really awesome to see you and Evangelion win 2 Grand Prix in the single year out of 4 of them. So that'd be pretty awesome for Spain and for the Valencia club. So
Thank you very much. We'll
Yeah.
do our best.
all right.
That would be great. So that's it for us for now. It's going to be a very, very short break while we set up the next series. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with the next round.